Hey, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Gabe DeArmond, Sean Williams, and Sean Williams' cat here on the Tuesday Tiger Recruiting Show, brought to you by James Carlton State Farm Insurance in St. Louis, Missouri. Every State Farm bureau, or I should say office, is independently operated. So James Carlton wants to be your insurance agent. He's going to have to take care of Sean's cat pretty soon. I hope nothing seriously wrong. I don't know if James has animal coverage, but he does have coverage for your home, your auto, life insurance, whatever you might need. James Carlton has some special programs for teen drivers. He also, if you get in touch with him, the number and the Facebook page and the internet address are going to scroll across the bottom of the screen throughout the show. If you get in touch with him and tell him you heard about him on Power Mizzou and on our broadcasts, if he gives you a quote, he's going to donate $20 to Advancing Missouri Athletes, the Mizzou NIL Collective. Actually had somebody reach out this morning, say he's looking for a new State Farm agent in the state of Missouri, and we pointed him James's way. So we would encourage you guys to do the same. If you're looking for an insurance agent, James Carlton State Farm is the place that you want to go. Sean, other than vet care, what's going on in your world today, man?
Yeah, I gave the cat $5 and he shut up. So
perfect. That's an expensive cat, man. All I have to do is fill mine's water dish, and he's good.
Apparently, he wanted to be on the podcast. So
there you go. Hey, yeah, I mean, you know, dogs, cats, children. We welcome all guests on the show.
Hang on, he's not done yet. There we go.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's not that much in Mizzou recruiting going on. If you just want to bring your cat up on screen, we can talk about that.
Well, it's like I was going to say before we started this program. Hang on, buddy. Here you go. Anyway, before we started the program, I'm like, well, I mean, what's there to talk about? It seems like a lot of the talks around some Luther Burden talk right now. So, I mean, why are we here? Why is
right? We really could just sit here and break down kids' Instagram stories for the next 30 minutes. Do want to invite you to, if you are watching live, we do appreciate that, and feel free, comments, questions, whatever you've got. Again, we don't want to answer 27 questions about Luther Burden's Instagram story. This is kind of geared toward recruiting. Luther was recruiting last year. This is recruiting new players. But any comments, questions you have, feel free to throw them up there. If you have them, we'll get to them certainly. And if you don't, hey, that's okay too. Sean, we'll start here. You were on the road last week. Watched Brett Norfleet and Ja'Kai Lang, both Missouri commitments. So what kind of stood out in that trip between Troy Buchanan and Francis Howell? Is it one of the Francis Howell schools that Northwood plays at? There's like 19 of them.
Just Francis Howell, not one of the Francis Howell directional schools, just Francis Howell. Okay. But yeah. So I think the thing that really stood out was just Northfleet's size. I mean, he's a tall dude, and I think he's a really good blocker too. You know, he I was kind of surprised he didn't throw that. Look, you know, we're talking high school ball here, so you know, naturally Francis Howell didn't throw the ball a whole lot. They might have threw it like 12 times during the game. I'm surprised they didn't throw it to Northfleet more, just because he is such a big target. I think he only got thrown to twice, and he did haul in an 11-yard touchdown pass late in the third quarter that kind of helped seal the deal and at least extend the lead for Francis Howell. But no, I mean, he was a pretty big part of the run game, just in terms of his blocking. You know, he lines up on the end of the line, and he was also blocking outside on the edge too. So he was a really big factor in that aspect. I mean, I think Francis Howell's running back, I don't know how many yards he had, but he had 4 touchdown runs. So I'm pretty sure he had over 100. He might have had close to 200 yards rushing. So he's a big factor in that. He also, you know, Northfleet also, you know, kind of lines up a defensive end sometimes. So he played a few snaps at defensive end throughout the game, and so kind of impressed with just his versatility and you know, things like that. I would have wished I would have saw more in the passing game, but like I said, you know, you can't expect you can't go into a high school game expecting them to pass the ball a lot. So, right. But Ja'Kai Lang, pretty impressed with him. I mean, obviously, you know, look, you walk into a game like that, you can kind of pick out the Power 5 guys right away. You know, Ja'Kai definitely looks like a Power 5 guy just in terms of his stature and build and everything like that. You know, he was in on 4 tackles himself. He didn't get any sacks in this game, which is something he kind of talked about afterwards. He's like, man, I really want to get more sacks this season. But he's like, you know, but he's actually playing every snap almost. I mean, I think he might have went out for a snap or two, but he plays defensive end. He plays offensive tackle. So, yeah, he said, it kind of does affect maybe his motor a little bit, especially late in games in terms of defensive end spot, trying to get after the quarterback. But he said he would like to have a lot more sacks this year. But I think he was in on 4 tackles himself. I think he assisted on a couple more. So he did a really good job, and I was just kind of impressed with the size overall. And both of those guys show versatility. They play multiple positions. They do different things. Norfleet blocks, and he played defensive end. And he was a factor in the passing game whenever they needed a big touchdown late in the third quarter. So, overall, really good game. It was good to kind of catch up with those guys. Both of them are very solid with Missouri right now. They talked about they were both at the Abilene Christian game recently. Talked about the atmosphere there, and just kind of talked about how they were kind of all in with Missouri, and talking to other St. Louis kids, trying to get them in the boat as well. So
Ja'Kai Lang kind of reminds me of like a Ziggy Hood, or the type of defensive lineman that Gary Pinkel used to recruit. When you see this kid in person, you look at him and like in high school, all he's got to do is go out there, and he's the most physically gifted guy probably in most games he plays in. But he's a kid that you look at and say, man, he's just a baby. And when they get him in a college conditioning program, I'll be intrigued to see what that kid is in about 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look at all these kids, especially Norfleet, he's tall, not exactly big. So, he's definitely can add, he's got the frame to add some really good weight in college. Same with Ja'Kai Lang as well. You get him in a college weight program and kind of see where he kind of, how much better he gets, and just in terms of physicality and speed and athleticism and everything. So those are all interesting things to kind of follow once they do get into college.
Is Norfleet Missouri extensively or exclusively wants him tight end, right? Do you think there's any chance they're looking at him on the other side?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's strictly tight end. And I know, like, whenever they were recruiting him, my cat is being like super annoying today right now. So like he's laying right here next to me. But anyway, whenever recruiting Norfleet, I know, it seems like out of their tight ends, they're looking for, versatile tight ends, ones that can go out and catch passes, but they also want them to block a lot, so I know that was a big thing that, he was talking about. The coaches really wanted him to liked from him, but wanted to see him improve on, this upcoming season. And, they said that's one of the things he's been working on, being a more efficient blocker. And he really kind of showed that. He was kind of a big part of their blocking scheme and running scheme on Friday night. So.
Yeah, well, if he can catch passes, I don't know if he could be eligible for Saturday, but I'm not joking about this part. If there's a position where there's playing time available next year on this team, it's tight end. Ryan Horstkamp has barely seen the field. Max Wisner is a true freshman, and I know there's high hopes for him. Gavin McKay, just I don't know. Hasn't made the travel roster, so. There's plenty of playing time available there.
Yeah, it seems that way just from looking at all the recaps of the games. There's a lot of playing time, I think, in a lot of positions, but specifically tight end. I know tight end hasn't really been productive, but yeah, I can see, and that really just depends. Like I said, how much progression he does once he gets to college and gets in the weight program. But yeah. I didn't see a lot of pass catching from him, so it's kind of hard to really read that. He did a good job on that 11-yard pass. It was kind of over the middle on a slant route. But like half the time they kind of went to the passing game. He was kind of more of a decoy on most of those. So it's kind of hard to really assess his route running and catching ability too. So.
One last thing on these guys, then we'll get to your guys' questions. And I've been busy today. I haven't read the story you posted on Brett quite yet, but did you talk to him about baseball at all? Is that still a thing with him?
Yeah, I just kind of mentioned it toward the end of the interview and just said, hey, how's baseball going? Yeah, you're sneezing. I got cat problems. Yeah. So, it all happens. Yeah. But yeah, baseball seems like it will go with him. And that seems like kind of the plan, football and
baseball.
Is
he going to do that at Missouri?
Yeah, I assume that's going to be the case. Yeah.
Okay. So he and Sam Horn should have a lot of time to spend together. So we'll get to the questions again. If you got questions, comments, whatever, throw them up there, and we're going to spend the next 10 to 20 minutes. I got to be over at practice at 3:30, but next few minutes, kind of talking about what you guys want to talk about. Patrick wants to know Samuel Mpemba is coming this weekend. Is it surprising? And I believe Georgia made his latest cut. Look, he's one of those kids. I don't know how many schools he's at. It could be different tomorrow as far as top 5, top 10, top 12, whatever. But we are under no real impression that Missouri's a serious option for Mpemba. But if he wants to come to campus, look, you say yes, right? I mean,
right.
You don't really want him coming and being a recruiting visitor if the main reason he's there is getting to see Georgia play, but also a kid of that caliber, if he calls you and says, hey, I'd like to come to the game, you're not going to say no.
Right. Yeah. That's a kid you always say yes to, just because he is, grew up in that St. Louis area. So, I mean, he does have ties to that program. He probably knows a lot of the kids on the roster too. So, anytime he wants to come visit, yeah, sure. I know he's not like being mentioned now, or he's not, Missouri's not in his top group. And, he's one of those kids, he's a little, I guess, all over the board. And, a lot of the top programs want him. So you never know where he's going to visit. But yeah, if he wants to visit Missouri, I mean, why not? Yeah. I mean, make kind of a late push and be like, hey, you can come play next year, buddy.
Right. And you keep, I mean, if he comes on campus, look, Georgia's coaches can't talk to him. Missouri's coaches can. So you talk to him, you keep the relationship up, and weird things happened at the end of recruitments, right? Maybe and I know people will say, well, he's a top 5 player. He can go anywhere he wants. He probably can go anywhere he wants. But I'm just saying at the end, sometimes spots dry up and weird things happen with places. And if you've always been there, you could maybe capitalize on some sort of a rebound. Whereas if you cut ties and say, no, man, we're not in your top 7 on Twitter, then, you're going to have no chance to do it. So,
well, yeah. And I always think about this when it comes to top 5 guys. Yeah, they do have their pick of the litter, in terms of where they want to go to school. But, if you got the ties to a certain program like Missouri, the thing that might be appealing is, hey, you can play right away. Whereas you look at Georgia and Alabama, you're going to be on a depth chart with a lot of other talented people. So, I mean, to me, I think in a 5-star point of view now, look, I'm thinking like a 40-year-old right here, not an 18-year-old 5-star, but yeah, I mean, I think that would kind of be appealing to some people, to go into a place that you're very familiar with. And you can have the possibility to play right away and start right away. So,
yeah,
that's
no
just
question.
my thinking.
No question. Okay. Going through some of these other questions. Kyle wants to know, do you think they go heavy on the portal on offense, kind of like they did on defense this year, especially at tight end and offensive line? Offensive line, I think, without question. Yes.
Right.
I mean, So I was kind of looking at it. They said Zeke Powell's out for the year today. I mean, he was done next year anyway. Armand Mimbo played quite a bit at Auburn this week, did pretty well for a true freshman. So I think you look at him as, hey, that's our right tackle next year. Mitchell Walters played quite a bit he got the start, played every snap actually on Saturday. And I asked Drinkwitz about him because he's a big kid that when he was recruited, I thought tackle. And Drinkwitz said, without going into what we think he does well and what we think he doesn't do well, we think guard is his position. So there's your starting right guard next year. Connor Tollison is already starting at center. There's your center. And obviously you hope maybe he, in a year he's better than he is today. Javon Foster, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look if he has one more year at left tackle or not. But if he chooses to move on, or if he has to move on, and again, I just don't know off the top of my head which one it is. I'll look that up next time Sean talks, but maybe you're looking for a left tackle in the portal. And left guard, Luke Griffin is still there, but he hasn't beaten out Xavier Delgado yet. EJ Ndoma Ogar is there, but he hasn't really gotten in the rotation yet. So I could see them looking for 1 and maybe 2 starting offensive linemen in the portal.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the portal's for. If you have a deficiency, you kind of look for those guys that can come in and you can plug and play right away as you continue to look up some eligibility.
Yeah, I'm on my way right now. It won't take you. The way I have it is that Javon Foster does still have the COVID year available after this year, and so does Xavier Delgado, and so actually does Connor Wood. So all three of those guys could come back. Foster's the only one of those three that I look at and say, hey, he's got NFL opportunities ahead of him. Mm-hmm. You're also going to add the Buffalo transfer who was ineligible this year at center. So there are guys there, but I still think they're looking in the portal.
Yeah, I think you're looking for the portal for at least one, whether that's a left tackle or a left guard. I think you're going to
look some depth.
Yeah. There's that's another way to recruit the portal too. Look for guys that can be depth guys, that you can kind of rely on to come in and do have experience too.
Yeah, look at a guy who maybe was a starter at a group of 5 team or a lower level team who, hey, he might not start for you, but he can be a body that can be in the rotation. Tight end is a little more interesting to me. I mean, we mentioned Wisner and Horskamp are here. I'm not going to say that Gavin McCabe won't contribute, but he hasn't so far. It's not really a guy I'd count on. You're bringing in Norfleet. They could still go look at a tight end, but I think everybody has. Tyler Stevens has 2 years left. Horskamp and McKay have 3, and Wisner has 4 after this one.
Yeah,
so if you've got to go get a starting tight end in the portal, it really doesn't say very much for how you've recruited the position or evaluated it.
I agree. You mentioned all those guys that I think Drinkwitz has brought in on his own, and for the most part,
all 4 of them. I mean, McKay was
kind of like in that.
He was committed, stage. But he recommitted.
Yeah,
they kept him.
So, I mean, that doesn't say, you would think, the Stevens kid would come in and be your guy, right away. But, I mean, that's kind of tough when you got that many tight ends on your roster and, you're kind of looking for another one to come in and start and hopefully, make it. So, I mean, I think that's kind of why you brought Stevens in the first place from Buffalo to kind of be that guy, and he just hasn't panned out. So do you do that again? I mean, I guess if the right person's out there, but I think you got enough guys, maybe you can rely on them and hopefully see how it pans out in another year.
Elsewhere on offense, I mean, wide receiver, are they recruiting Marquise Johnson? Remind me, as a receiver or a D-back?
Receiver.
Okay, so they've got him, Nicholas Deloach, who I think maybe is a defensive back.
He's gonna be a DB. Deloach is.
Okay. Yeah. And then they've got Josh Manning, who is a wide receiver. And look, you got, I mean, we're assuming all these guys are coming back, but Burden and Lovett and Mekhi Miller and Mookie Cooper, all these, I don't think you need a receiver in the portal. I don't think you need a running back in the portal because Tavoris Jones, I think, is going to be that guy. I think he's probably your starter next year. And then, you've got some other younger guys there. Quarterback will be, I don't think they're looking for a starting quarterback in the portal by any means, but they could be, depending on what happens, they could be looking for a body to add.
Yeah, I mean, quarterback's always always the hot button topic in the transfer portal off season. So
yeah, it's so tough because it's the only position where only one guy plays, and so it's the most logical one to say, well, hey, if Sam Horn's the starter next year, what's that mean for Tyler Macon and Brady Cook? And what if they both leave? Then you got to have another guy, right? I mean, that's just it's the nature of the position, and we're not trying to push kids out the door, but it's just kind of being honest about the whole thing. Chad Brenton wants to know, and I think it's now starting to get to the point where it's okay to ask this question, is when should we be concerned? I don't think it's going to be a huge class, but I do understand Missouri fans now who are going, I mean, we've come on the show, Sean, 4 straight weeks and gone, yeah, Logan Riker committed, but we don't really have a lot else, So is it getting to the point where it's okay to be a little nervous?
I think so, because I mean we've kind of been saying, well, it's transition period the last 4 weeks, Yeah, and it kind of is. You hope to get like a lot of your guys committed in the summer, and and like I said, they did miss on a lot of offensive line guys, and they missed on some other guys too, and there's just not really any guys popping out that could potentially commit right now. I think it's going to be a situation where you're going to have to wait till November and December and see who they bring in, who they get to come in for visits and official visits and things like that. And there's probably going to be some JUCO guys that have come in here too. They've offered some JUCO guys recently. So we do know they're searching. We just don't know who's going to come in for a visit yet. And, until that's clear, I mean, yeah, I think there is a little cause for concern because we're sitting here 4 weeks in. We're also saying, hey, we think Marvin Burks might commit, but he hasn't yet.
Nothing's happened yet.
And that makes you think that maybe he likes Missouri, but maybe he's trying to see if he can, maybe go somewhere else. So you just don't know.
We need to figure out when Marvin Burks' birthday is, because that seems to be the move, right? Public announcements on your birthday. I think you kind of just answered this, but Patrick says, where would you place your bet for the next offensive line commit? I mean, are there guys out there that you see as that they're chasing that, like, I don't know, if JUCO guy or anything like that, or are we thinking portal?
I mean, I'm probably saying JUCO guy. Maybe. I mean, right now, I'd probably say JUCO guy just because, the portal thing's not going to happen until December, and that's going to be just a wave of a wave of bodies entering the portal.
December 5th is going to be wild, man.
That's going to be interesting to see, like, just how many people jump in the portal on December 5th, so. And
what we're not talking about here is how many people from Missouri jump in the portal on December 5th, because there are going to be some.
Yeah.
And there might be some that kind of surprise us, right? That, hey, didn't see that coming. I mean, Mekhi Wingo happened last year.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I mean, there's going to be, we talked about it, kind of mentioned it last week, but, you've got guys out there like Colorado State's wide receiver. He's kind of announced like, hey, I'm going to be in the portal on December 5th. So there's going to be guys out there that's going to announce it on social media. They're going to say, hey, I'm in the portal. So we're going to have like a list of guys already we expect to be there. And then there's going to be a wave of others that just kind of pop in there that don't announce it. So it's going to be.
Hey, put my name in the notes app on your phone. Just don't forget. I'll be there a couple months, but I'm going to be there.
Well, you got to give, and that's smart on the players' parts because they're giving coaches a heads up. Like, hey, I'll be in the portal, so think of me whenever December 5th rolls around, and you can contact me. So,
absolutely, a couple more here. Ryan says, what are the positions it looks like Missouri's trying to fill out their class with? We talked a little bit about offense, but what do you think they're still looking for defensively?
Defensively, they're definitely looking for, it seems like, a defensive end for sure. They've the JUCO guys, they've offered defensive end, cornerback. Those seem to be like the two spots they're really looking for right now. So because they've offered a couple of JUCO guys in that regard and cornerbacks as well. So yeah, defensive end, edge rusher, and a cornerback seems like the defensive positions they're really looking at the moment.
Jake is asking about Jordan Butler, a basketball recruit. I traded texts with him this morning. He released the top 3 of South Carolina, Missouri, and Auburn. Commitment could come soon. He told me he doesn't have like a set time for it yet. My gut feeling is this is Missouri or South Carolina. He visited Auburn last summer, but hasn't since. I think it'll come down to playing at home or playing for Charlton Young and Dennis Gates. If I had to lean one way, I might lean slightly Missouri right now, but that's a gut feeling that's based on not anything I've been told. So we'll see where that goes. Let's see. Kyle's asking about Marvin Burks. No developments there. Okay. So, Dan Dorr says, why would you offer or take junior college guys when you had so much success in the portal for defense? And junior college guys, and again, like people are asking about portal guys, like, again, you have guys where if you're taking a tight end, that concerns me about your evaluations of kids. If you're taking a running back, what's happened to BJ Harris and Taj Butts? And we are like, at some point, the portal has to just become a place to plug 1 or 2 holes, not to recruit an entire new starting lineup.
Right. I kind of look at it just because I cover Minnesota, but Minnesota's kind of got it down to where they don't. I think they might have got like maybe 5 or 6 transfers this offseason, maybe 7 or 8.
And that's a fair number.
Yeah, that's a fair number. That's plug and play. I mean, that's but Fleck's been there for what, like 5 or 6 years now. So, I mean, I think they're kind of good with their evaluations, and they use the portal for what it's kind of meant to be if you're an established program and you're an established coaching staff.
Right. It's like the portal should be spackle to get over some holes. You ain't building a new damn foundation every single year.
It should be the spackle after a frat party, when you put holes in the wall, right?
Right. Yeah. If you're building a new foundation every year, you need a new damn house, man.
And you don't want to piss the landlord off,
Right.
Spackle that
so along those lines, we're going to finish up with this. And Sean, I'm going to give you kind of the first shot at this as it relates to recruiting. But because I've got some thoughts on this. Finish Strong says, if Drinkwitz is less than 500 at the end of year 4, should he be fired like B.O. was, who was 500 with the chance to go over 500 with the bowl win? So, look, we're not saying I'm not asking you to say, yes, Eli Drinkwitz should be fired or Eli Drinkwitz should not be fired, but just as it relates to recruiting, any thoughts?
As it relates to recruiting, I think there's going to be, if he's under 500, there's going to be some major concerns for this class, because I think a lot of the class kind of hinged on how Missouri would do this year and how they look, and the perception of other recruits. So that's going to be kind of my do you want me to say if he should be fired?
I try to make a practice of we don't really advocate for guys firing.
No, but I mean, look, if he's under 500 at the end of the year, I mean, the seat's going to be pretty hot, I believe.
So I think it'll be warm, and I think that'll hurt him on the recruiting trail. But I'm going to reiterate this, and I'm going to explain my reasons why. I think it's dumb if you fire Eli Drinkwitz after this season. The only exception is if we see a lot of these 2021 and 2022 guys enter the portal, the guys he brought, that can change the calculus a little bit. But if we're just assuming, hey, let's say they go 4-8, normal attrition, I give them another year, and here's why. Because I'm not getting rid of Eli Drinkwitz before I have seen Sam Horn as the starting quarterback, before I've seen Tavoris Jones as the starting running back, before I've seen Luther Burden in his second season. Because we tried to say before the season, guys, true freshmen, wide receivers, like, pump the brakes. You're getting a little out of control here with some of these expectations. And I think we're starting to see that. And we're going to write about this a little bit tomorrow. But look at what Dominic Lovett is doing in year 2. He was a guy that caught 26 balls for 173 yards last year. And he is now the SEC's leading receiver. Year 2 should be better than year 1. So I want to see him with those guys on the field. And with some of the other, Isaac Thompson, Tyler Hibbler, some of these other guys maybe we haven't talked about as much, Jamarian Wayne, Marquise Graciel, those guys have to play before I'm going to make final judgment on Eli Drinkwitz. And if you give up on him and if you fire him after this year, a lot of those guys they're absolutely going to leave. And then you're just giving up on the last 2 recruiting classes. And if you have to hire a new coach, whether it's this year or next year or the year after, whatever, all Missouri's going to do is go hire the next guy who's Eli Drinkwitz and say, well, we hope we're more right this time. Like, you're not hiring a proven Power 5 coach. You're hiring the guy that you hope becomes a good Power 5 coach. And so 3 years is just too soon to give up on that. And look, that is not a guarantee that he's the guy and that it's all going to work. But you guys were so excited about these 2 recruiting classes, and I get why. You should have been. They were the best ones Missouri's ever had on paper. To quit on the guy that brought them here before they see the field it would be insanity. And I will write that it doesn't even talk about the financial parts. But again, if Missouri fires Drinkwitz after the season, I'm going to write a column that says it's stupid, barring just something completely unforeseen happening between now and December.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And, look, this will be year 3 of Drinkwitz. And look, Missouri's not Georgia. You can't just can a coach after, that shorter period of time. Some schools can get away with it like that, but Missouri can't,
I mean, you can if it's like glaringly obvious you've made a mistake, right?
Right.
But you can't say it's glaringly obvious they've made a mistake yet.
In the examples you gave, if like the 21, 22 kids that they brought in the class start, hitting the portal or whatever, then maybe that's a huge red flag. But
if I see 6 members of last year's class in the portal on December 5th, then I'll listen to the argument.
Right. Right. Yeah, you bring up a good point. Missouri is kind of one of the, it's a program where you might not want to cut ties too early with a coach like that and see where things go. I mean, you bring up a great point that he brought in the best 2 recruiting classes Missouri's ever has. Let's kind of see where things pan out with those classes before we kind of, cut the cord there.
Yeah, and we'll finish up just a real quick one on this one. Magic Man wants to know the deal with DJ Wesselak. He was sick in fall camp, missed a lot of time. He's working out. I saw him warming up for the Abilene Christian game with linebackers, so he's with the team. He's not going to play this year. He was never probably going to play this year. This was always going to be a redshirt season. So I don't know, Sean, parting shots, man. I got to get to football practice. Your cat seems to be settled down. The situation seems to be better, but just want to make sure everything's good there.
No parting shots. It's kind of funny. We come on here with maybe not really a game plan, a little list of things we're going to talk about, but we end up talking for like 30 minutes every time. So it's all good.
Yep. That's how we do it, man. We are pro improvisers. So, Sean, appreciate it, man. We'll let you go, and I'm going to wrap up here.
All right. See ya.
All right, that is Sean Williams, our recruiting editor. Appreciate his contributions and knowledge. He knows more about the recruiting than I do, if we're being honest about it. But you know what I know about? I know about our sponsors, and I know about paying our bills, and that is James Carlton, State Farm, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800. Once again, if you get in touch with James and you let him know, or anybody on his team, and let him know you heard about him on Power Mizzou, then he is going to donate $20 to Missouri's NIL collective, Advancing Missouri Athletes. And he's also probably going to get you a hell of a deal on your insurance. He's going to do the best he can. Customer service is their thing. You're going to talk to a real human being, and hey, just give him a shot. He's a Mizzou fan. He's a PowerMizzou.com subscriber. Those are always guys that we encourage you guys to, if you're going to give your business to somebody and you've got to have insurance, give it to somebody who supports the same things that you guys support. So if your insurance costs a leg and an arm, call James Carlton, State Farm. Appreciate James for being a part of this. Appreciate all you guys for being a part of this. If you watched live, we would ask you to hit the like button on the show, hit the subscribe button on the channel, spread the word what we're doing, let more people know about it. If you are listening on the podcast, which we will post afterwards, once again, just pass it on social media, share it with your friends. You can get it in all your podcast feeds, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple, Spotify. I think that covers at least most of them. There are probably some other places, but give us a nice review, share what we're doing. Thanks, guys. Gerard Hamilton and I will be back previewing Georgia. We'll be a little delayed tomorrow. I've got an appointment, but we'll go about 3:15 tomorrow afternoon. And Sean and I will be back next Tuesday talking Mizzou recruiting. See you then.